What's that?
I think we should be live now.
Waiting for WrestleVision. That's what I get on YouTube.
I think there's a 30-second or so delay. So give it a minute and then we'll check.
Ric Flair,
30 seconds are not a minute.
Dan can sing a song while we wait.
Ric Flair drip.
Nah, I don't feel like Ric Flair. I feel like Bugenhagen. Dun, 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 dun. Okay. Their faces, we are live.
We are live, are we?
I do not see it.
We are indeed.
We are on the internet.
We are.
Bloody hell. What would we do without Jan? Not have a live stream like last week?
Nothing. As you saw, yeah.
Let's do this real quick.
Oh, 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 oh. In the shadows of my life, I'll be waiting. I'll be waiting.
Danny's going to have to sing a song every week now. This is going to have to become tradition.
Oh my god.
The jingle that we can play before we talk about Otis.
This is WrestleVision with the power of love.
Are we gonna?
Right. I'll be 2 seconds and then we can start.
Ric Flair drip go on a bitch.
Styling and profiling. Woo! Jet flying, key stealing. Son of my god.
Wheeling dealing.
Wheeling dealing.
Right.
Ah.
I believe that is tweeted.
Yay.
So. 2 seconds.
It's like
get underway.
in iCarly, we go like 1, 2, 3. I know you there.
Somehow the world will change for me and be so
Wonderful. Ding, ding, ding.
Live life, breathe life. I know somehow we're gonna get there. So wonderful. Wake up the members of my nation. It's your time to be.
I'm telling you just how I feel.
Oh, are we ready now?
I think we are, yes.
Right. Hello and welcome to the second WrestleVision live stream, the February 8th edition. First of all, we're going to apologise for no stream last week. Jan couldn't be with us, he was busy, and it was left to me to organise things. And I'm me, so it didn't work. So it's not going to be a regular occurrence. But it does mean we've got 2 weeks worth of news to cover, so we could well be here for over 17 hours. Now, first of all, I'm Liam. I am joined by, I don't know what direction people are in. Connel is here somewhere.
I'm here.
Dan is also here.
Hello.
And Jan is somewhere too.
Yeah, I'm top left, you're top right, Liam, Dan's bottom left, and Connell is bottom right, so...
I'm at the bottom. Just below.
Anyway,
Liam's
we have got loads to discuss.
Dan is there, and I'm here.
We have got loads to discuss. I've tried my best to shape the agenda in a way that is going to allow us to get through the most important stuff with a balance of recent news and last week's news. So there will be some of last week's news covered quite in depth because it's quite big news. But we're going to start with our headline news, which is that the Undertaker, the legendary Undertaker, could well be out of WWE if we look into his social media activity, which involves him removing every reference of WWE from his social media accounts.
Yeah, I guess it's kind of crazy that the Undertaker has social media in the first place because
Yeah, I
he
guess
didn't have
the news here is
for
that he's
years.
even on there.
Yeah, I think with that situation it's more like, hey, he's going on maybe his last match this year. I know right now nothing is planned, but I think this might be if he has a match this year, I think it's his last, 100%. And that just in preparation for that. I don't think he's done with WWE entirely, but it's just, hey, I'm almost done wrestling, or I'm done wrestling, and I don't work for this company anymore, so why have them in my social media? It's not that there is any beef or whatever. I think it's just, hey, I'm not working for them full time anymore. Why have them in my social media? This is a social media for my private life, for the stuff I do now, and not for the character I portray on the internet. So
There are a couple of notes that sort of reference what you mentioned. The fact that you mentioned Undertaker could well be soon to have his last WrestleMania match.
Yep.
Dave Meltzer, the legendary Dave Meltzer of the Wrestling Observer newsletter, says that Undertaker, at the minute, he isn't scheduled for a big WrestleMania match.
I can't see where he'd fit in anyway. I can't see anyone that he'd fit in against.
Ric Flair.
Oh,
That's all Dan's ever going to say, by the way.
let
Anyone
Dan
who's...
get the Ric Flair video out of the way. So
If
now
you need an opponent, call Rick. He will do it for you.
Excellent. Now, there was the rumour a few weeks back that The Undertaker could be actually going in the Hall of Fame this year. This came about from a screenshot someone grabbed. I think the story originally appeared on Wrestling Inc. I might be wrong. The story was that WWE released something for the network. It was a network collection, or something of that nature.
Yeah,
And
it was
listed,
an advertisement for a network collection, and it said blah blah blah, witness Hall of
the old
Famers
episode,
like Undertaker.
Yeah, the old episodes
Yeah,
of WWE.
so it referenced The Undertaker as a Hall of Famer. That's been changed, so that's no longer there, which could mean one of two things. It could mean they realised it was an accidental spoiler and took it away, or it was just a genuine mistake and an easy one to make. We are going to get into a little bit of Hall of Fame discussion in a little bit, because there is one particular Hall of Fame induction that has been leaked. We'll get into that in a bit, but at the minute, Undertaker, interesting news is he is taking non-WWE bookings, so if you want to hire Undertaker for your event, you are more than welcome
on the live stream for the low price of $25,000.
$25,000 an hour.
To be honest, for him to appear at an event or something, that's not much, especially for a person of his stature or of his status. I don't think it's that much, to be honest.
But I doubt he is taking 25,000 per hour for his appearance at Inside the Ropes. That can't be true.
Who knows?
Can you imagine these local backyard indie feds trying to do his entrance properly with all the smoke?
$25,000 an hour actually equates to $100,000 an hour per entrance to the ring. So
okay, we gotta discuss this here. His entrance is long, but everyone who's seen an entrance of Jörn Simmons,
which is the reliable WrestleVotes, who very rarely get anything even slightly wrong.
Yep.
If ever, they said that there was a big surprise planned for the Royal Rumble. It was going to be this big surprise, this big moment, or something of that nature, and it didn't happen. And a lot of people called him out and said, "Well, where was that big moment that you reported was going to happen?" They then said that moment was meant for Dean Ambrose. We'll get to him as well, but
of course we will.
It wouldn't be a stream without discussing Rowan. But yeah, so the angle or the whatever they were doing was apparently meant for Ambrose. It was nixed because Ambrose said he was leaving, so they don't want to put him in a major storyline going forward now. Any thoughts on Ambrose leaving the company?
I mean, I would have had a lot last week, but like it's kind of old news at this point.
Yeah. I think with him, it's more like there's not really a story to compare it to, but I think it's a good possibility that he's not leaving in the end. I think it's just, hey, with Dean Ambrose, I think he could. It's a 50-50 situation, honestly, I think, because Dean Ambrose is such an unpredictable guy, not only in character, but also, I think, what he does, when he does it, how he acts. We don't know a lot about his mindset or how, whatever.
He doesn't even talk to his wife.
Well, the thing that we don't really know much about his mindset isn't that true anymore, because he appeared on Zack Ryder's and Kurt Hawkins' podcast this week, and he just had a little, not a rant, but he talked about his unhappiness and how he feels that a lot of his peers are pretty unhappy in WWE, and it feels like Dean is just tired of WWE right now, and he needs a larger break, and the biggest paycheck in the world couldn't let him on the WWE.
I think with Dean Ambrose, it's the problem that he can't say what he wants. Or that he hasn't the creative freedom that he wants necessarily, but I think it's a good possibility that these things get sorted out before April and that he doesn't leave. But I think it's also a possibility that he leaves, takes a break, and comes back like in a year or something. But
I mean, one thing that I didn't mention there was WWE, in an unprecedented thing that they very rarely ever do, they actually released an article on their website, a tweet, saying that Ambrose is going to leave in April.
Yep.
And they wished him well, and they said, we hope that Ambrose is coming back. Could there be, there could be an understanding there that he is going to go back, which would explain why
maybe
this is happening. Because it is certainly an interesting thing. I've seen a lot of people say, is it a work? Like, is the fact that WWE tweeted it out and publicised it actually just because it's all a work? I completely believe that to be false. I think Ambrose has told them he's leaving, and I think Ambrose is leaving.
Yeah. They'll turn it into a story. It didn't start as one.
Yeah, but he will still leave. But what Jan said, he is a pretty unpredictable man. He could decide to stay. And maybe WWE doing all this, saying, look how special Ambrose is to us that we're releasing this thing telling you he's leaving, and keeping him on TV after this fact, it could be a persuasion method that ultimately is going to try and, persuade him to stay.
Well, and on Raw, it looked like they are giving him like not full, but a lot of freedom in his promos and the way he can carry himself right now. It feels like he has completely dropped his character, and he's just Dean right now, and I believe that's best for him.
Yes, and I think that was his reason to say, hey, I want to leave, because the first reports after this rumor started was, hey, he's leaving because he's unhappy with creative. Yeah. And I think
he's sick of the hokey.
Yep. And I think that this changes, and I think we have seen that change over the last few weeks now, especially with him. And I think that's the one thing that makes me believe he could stay in the long run, but we'll see.
I definitely think that. I think there's more chance of him leaving, taking a break, and going back to WWE than there is of him leaving and going to another company.
Same. I think he's needs a break from just wrestling. Period. At the minute,
He's a chill guy. He just wants to chill out for a bit, I think.
Yep.
Yeah. And
Because he did
so many matches.
He was like the guy in that company who wrestled like the most matches over the 3 years. Like even when he was down for like half of 2018, he was like one of the top guys.
Yeah.
For matches wrestled in.
Yeah.
So he was burnt out.
Yeah, I think it's with what you said, perfect word, burnout. Maybe he has burnout. Who knows? I don't know. It could very well could be. Or
I mean this in no offensive way whatsoever, because look at me and look at Dean Ambrose, but he's not exactly Finn Balor and he's not exactly Seth Rollins.
Yep.
In terms of fitness, you can see in his matches. You know, I'm not saying he's not.
He's
fit in
not saying he's not fit, but he's not as fit as other guys. That's
exactly.
He's not one of those guys you'd put in like number 2 in a Royal Rumble and have last all the way.
Yeah, he's not an Iron Man in anything really.
He's not bullfit.
Basically, what they've done with Ambrose since then is instead of doing the big angle at the Rumble, he was actually just dumped out by Aleister Black in a pretty standard elimination. It was a black mass that looked a bit silly because when a strike finisher is used to send an opponent over the top rope, it always looks silly because it is a silly thing to do, but they did it anyway. And then the next night, he was beaten in the opening match by Seth Rollins, clean as a whistle. And he was about to sit down in the ring. He was about to make an announcement by the looks of it. Presumably, you know, the storyline is that he was going to announce the fact that he was leaving. But Nia Jax comes out. Nia Jax was having a match afterwards. She comes out, gets in his face, and shoves him out the ring. This prompted reports. Could intergender wrestling be coming to WWE, with Nia Jax versus Dean Ambrose being the first storyline that they go with? No thank you, but if I was to make a prediction, I think we'll see gender wrestling in WWE probably by the end of the year.
Don't know if it'll be done at Mania, but it might be done before then, but it will definitely happen, the match.
Yeah. And then this week, that was last week, the Nia thing. This week, Alexa Bliss was on A Moment of Bliss, obviously. EC3 joined her, didn't talk because for some reason the best promo guy in wrestling, they're not letting say words.
It's like when Jericho came back and he never said words.
Yeah. So EC3 was there. Nia Jax came out for some reason. I don't understand why. I can't remember. It was Nia Jax. I tuned out. And then Dean Ambrose came out, and then we ended up with EC3 versus Dean Ambrose. But the fact that Ambrose and Nia were on the same stage at the same time, and there was still conflict between them, it looks like they are going in that particular direction.
Well, it looks like it, and I believe they're going to do this, but I also believe this is going to be a one-off, and I don't believe that Nia Jax is going to start wrestling men now, because there's still that promise that Vince McMahon gave Mattel. There will be no violence against women, and I don't believe he can just change that right now, and he literally had to ask Mattel for permission to do it one time and not start a full intergender wrestling era now.
I'm going to say something now. Nia Jax is not a woman.
She's not like most girls. Yeah.
Yep.
No, she's not like most girls because she is not, in fact, a girl.
Yep.
Anyway, we'll not get into that because
he doesn't have a snooker. Yes.
She can identify as whatever she wants.
We're in the era of fluidity.
Yep.
As you can get RKO'd by Randy Orton. Speaking of Randy Orton.
Speaking of Randy Orton, I mean, that's not next on the agenda, but good effort. Now, almost, you were close. Last point on Dean Ambrose, final point on Dean Ambrose. This reportedly led to absolute chaos backstage in WWE when they realised they're not invincible. They're not the big dogs in wrestling anymore. I mean, they are, but they're not as dominant as they were. And because of the fact that guys like Ambrose, who, you look at him and you think he, at this point in time, is among the top 10 guys in the company, but perhaps in terms of where he stands. Maybe that's wrong, but he's one of the top guys in the company anyway. And the fact that he's free to leave, the fact we've had the Connellises, the Revival, and more that we'll get into in a minute, wanting to leave and saying they will leave. WWE has been trying to tie everyone down to long-term contracts, so that can't happen. So they can't leave, and they did this last year with The Miz and Kevin Owens, who both got offered and both signed 5-year contracts last year. So they'll be in WWE until 2023 unless they are granted their release. But this shows that WWE are actually scared. They've realised guys can leave now and they can go and make money somewhere else. And we don't have that sort of influence over the wrestling business anymore, which is very exciting.
It is exciting, but I think they still are the biggest company worldwide and they still have the biggest influence, and that's not going to change for years to come. But
what they don't have, they're not financially the biggest company in wrestling anymore. And I think that is a major, major part of, and you know, we can walk around and say, oh, he's a money grabber because he wants to sign with AEW instead of WWE. If you can have a job, right, and someone's offering you more than someone else, you're going to go with the one that offers you more money. Yeah, exactly. If it's the same job, you're going to go with the one that offers you the more money. It's not because you're a money grabber or whatever.
It would just be stupid to not do so.
Exactly. And WWE they are scared. They are absolutely scared. Now, a more minor guy that is leaving WWE is Hideo Itami. Now, Itami asked for his release. He said he wanted to be released, much like everyone else. There's a slight difference in that Dave Meltzer speculated that Itami was granted his release, unlike... it's important to note, by the way, Ambrose didn't request his release in the middle of his contract. That's why he's just his contract is running out. That's important to note. So, yeah, Itami... We don't know when his contract was up, but he's requested to leave, and they've granted it. Now, the reason they've granted it, and they didn't for other guys, according to Meltzer, is because, or speculated by Meltzer, is because he signed an agreement with WWE that if they let him leave, he wouldn't wrestle in certain companies. So
I think for 90 days.
It's a 90-day non-compete clause. Because he's leaving, but he's Japan. It's the 90-day no-compete clause is active anyway. But on top of that, he signed an agreement whereby he can't wrestle for another company in a certain area or a certain noted company. We don't know the ins and outs, but one would assume.
I think that I was about to say. I think it's not to wrestle for any companies that North American companies that have a TV deal. I think that's it.
Yeah, that would make perfect sense, because that would rule out Ring of Honor, that would rule out AEW, which are the two biggest rivals at the minute, and Impact. Yeah, how could I forget about them?
And MLW, don't forget about them.
Oh, because anyway.
I think we can take a guess what company they're referring to.
We can indeed. I mean, with the Connellises.
You can just say, don't go to AEW.
Yeah, but with the Connellises, the rumour is it was Ring of Honor. So the North America thing would apply. So the reason the Revival and the Connellises didn't leave is because they didn't agree to not wrestle for another company in North America, because the reason they want to leave is so they can wrestle for another company in North America, which implies that Itami doesn't want to wrestle for another company in North America.
I think he's going back to Japan. I think that's obvious.
The thing with him is he's probably going to go back to Noah, and that's probably going to be the Japanese company they end up making the agreement with. So he...
Yeah, because we'll get into this in slightly more detail. We might as well mention it now, actually. The NXT officials or WWE officials were in Japan recently, as reported by Meltzer, that they're in Japan with certain companies. We don't know who. We assume Noah because they have a very good working relationship with Noah. They're not official partners yet, but that is believed to be the next step in their relationship.
And to be honest, which noteworthy Japanese company other than Noah is there? I mean,
it's not going to be New Japan.
Yeah,
maybe
All Japan.
All Japan isn't, yeah, but
Dragon Gate.
Dragon Gate could have been, yeah, but
All Japan has a network. The others, besides New Japan, don't.
I mean, either way, it's believed Noah is the most likely one, and it's believed Noah is Itami's most likely destination. So it would be interesting to see how that actually plays out. Whether Itami is used in a way that is integrated into NXT Japan. If he's left on good terms, he could make the occasional appearance here and there when the brand kicks off.
And still be wrestling under the WWE umbrella.
Yeah.
Actually pretty smart, and I think that suits him better because his career it's not really WWE's fault that his career didn't turn out as it did.
Really.
As everybody wished.
He was getting over, and he was going to do the thing at the Beast in the East, but then he got injured, and Balor took his spot.
I think the one and only reason Itami isn't where he could be in WWE is because of his injuries.
Yeah, that's absolutely true.
I think
it wasn't the first one he had, but then he got the other one, I think, on a house show. I can't remember who gave it to him with the neck, and then I think that was the one where they sort of just lost all faith in him.
Yeah, Riddick Moss. It's all Riddick Moss' fault.
I think every time Itami was about to get pushed, something happened to him or with him. And I think WWE just after the second or third time was just like, why? Why would we?
It becomes a question of whether they can rely on him. It's like, if we do choose to push you, who's to say that you're not going to get injured again? Yep. I mean, you could say that about literally everyone, but for people who get injured more than most, I think that's the reason the Revival haven't won tag team championships on the main roster. He will have to sit out a 90-day non-compete clause, which means he can't just his WWE contract can't end, and then he just appears on a show the next day, which theoretically could happen with Ambrose. He could easily wrestle on Raw on a Monday and appear at a Ring of Honor show the next day.
Tuesday Dynamite.
All I want to see if Ambrose really wrestles outside WWE is a reconnection with Sami Callihan as a tag team. I love them so much.
That would mean he'd have a good impact.
Not really. Callihan wrestles in other companies as well, so.
But Callihan can't wrestle for companies that are in a working relationship with WWE. He can't appear on WXW, for example.
Have it in AAW or Lucha Underground. I don't know.
I don't know if Lucha Underground is going to be a thing in the future.
That's true, but I think there is enough chance for that to happen. But I think with Ambrose, it's just he's taking a break, but we're over that already.
Yeah.
So
we'll move on because we spent a lot of time talking about Hideo Itami. The next big story is not someone that is leaving WWE, but it is a very interesting story nonetheless. And I'm going to concentrate here because I'm going to make sure I get this spot on. WrestleVotes reported on Twitter that a major WWE star was made an outstanding offer from AEW. They did not say who yet. We'll get to that in a second. Later, Sean Ross Sapp of Fightful, he said that Randy Orton, had been talking about the fact that he'd be open to joining AEW. This is not Sean Ross Sapp saying that Orton was made the offer. That he did not say that. We can't attribute him to saying that because it didn't happen. He just said that he'd been told that Orton has been walking around saying, "Oh yeah, I'd join AEW if they just happen to offer me a contract." WrestleVotes followed this up with just a Randy Orton gif on Twitter. therefore implying that they heard the offer was made by AEW to Randy Orton. Now, there is the possibility that this is true. There is also the possibility that this is a very intelligent move by Randy Orton, whoever manages him, his agent, whoever it is, because there's the possibility that this is just a negotiation tactic, that because of all the reports going, I might leave for AEW, it means WWE will offer him more money when his contract comes up. Either possibility is true. We don't know yet, but just the fact that this is a feasible report, the fact that it is believable that AEW offered Orton a contract, and it is believable that he'd accept it.
Yeah.
Excuse me. It's a very, very exciting prospect.
It's so mad.
Yeah, Fightful has also released a list of dates where people's contracts expire, and Randy Orton is set to have a new negotiation with WWE in 2020. So a lot of people are up in 2020 with their contracts.
2020 is going to be very exciting. We'll get to more 2020 contracts in a bit, but the fact that we could feasibly see Randy Orton in a ring that isn't a WWE ring is mental.
That will be like the modern version of Hogan going to WCW.
Absolutely.
Yeah, or Walter to WWE.
Walter to the Ric Flair.
5 years ago, that was unthinkable, actually.
Now, there's been a similar report to
Ric Flair.
Fucking Ric Flair. There's been a similar report to Orton. Now, this one is less dodgy. Now, we don't know if the Randy Orton one is true. We don't know, the ins and outs of it. We've just heard rumours. It's been speculated. It could be real. It could be not. He might have been made an offer. Maybe he's just talking about it because he's Randy Orton. He doesn't really care what anyone thinks. Brock Lesnar, according to Dave Meltzer, has been negotiating with AEW, which is mad. Absolutely insane.
Well, he has, and Heyman has.
Heyman has on Lesnar's behalf
with UFC, W, and WWE.
And to be honest, I'm not surprised about that, because with Brock Lesnar, he always said it's most of the time he does it for the money.
Give him again. That's not necessarily a bad thing. We touched on it before.
But
if WWE is saying we'll pay you so much to wrestle, and AEW says more, he's going to take the more.
Yeah, I think with Lesnar, it's just he doesn't give a damn where he is, as long as he gets paid. I think.
And we saw this in November, because if Roman Reigns' leukemia diagnosis didn't happen, Brock Lesnar would be in UFC right now. He wouldn't be in WWE. Because Vince panicked. When Reigns left, Vince panicked. He went, hold on, our top guy is Braun Strowman. I don't want him to win the title. There's no one else that can win the title. So he offered Lesnar more money. Lesnar took it and came back.
But also with Lesnar, he is in the USADA testing pool, which means he is eligible to fight in the UFC. But just of last month, I think it's at the end of January, he became eligible to fight again in the UFC, because he had to be in this testing pool for 6 months or something. So I'm not surprised he's still there, to be honest, because he couldn't be in WWE, in UFC right now. So,
well, it's important to note his WWE contract right now does actually allow him to fight in UFC at the same time while his contract's going on.
So he'll still have that in the AEW contract as well.
Yeah, we could end up with Lesnar wrestling for WWE, AEW, and UFC, and fighting for UFC.
That's not going to happen. We all know that, Dan. WWE is not going to allow him to wrestle on AEW at the same time as he's under their contract. That's not going to happen.
If he presses on them that he might leave completely for UFC then, or AEW, we don't know what Vince McMahon's reaction might be. Because fighting for UFC and WWE is also unheard of and crazy, but it's been done. I believe Heyman and Lesnar are so smart, they spotted AEW as another wheel to just milk money out of Vince McMahon, and
that's
he
also true.
does everything to really get Vince McMahon to pay him the money. And if he doesn't, Brock Lesnar doesn't care. He just goes to AEW. He doesn't really have to fear much.
I think that AEW would want to cough up more money as well to get Heyman on board as well.
Heyman for AEW would be absolutely monumental.
I just thought of something with when you said Heyman to AEW would be mental. Just imagine Kenny Omega as a Paul Heyman guy. Holy shit! I mean,
imagine
Omega on him with himself is already crazy, but with Heyman there, holy shit!
I don't know if there's anybody in AEW I'd put Heyman with, though. I'm thinking more creative.
Yeah. I'd think it'd work a lot on the backstage side of things because I think that's the front where, because they're new to, I mean, we're all buzzing about it, but it's a well-known fact that they haven't done this before. You know, the Young Bucks, Cody and Omega, they're the executive vice presidents of the company. They've never been an executive vice president of a wrestling company before. And while I'm sure they'll do a fantastic job, they will need help from guys that have done similar roles. And Heyman has done it and done it to an absolute T and done it to the highest standard perhaps in wrestling history. He will take them to another level.
To be honest, I think he will be helping them no matter what. Even if it's not public or official, I think he will be helping them no matter what. I think...
Yeah, I could see that very easily.
They thought he was paying off WWE when he was in ECW. He'll do it like behind the back.
Yeah. I mean, it's wrestling. There's no, things.
Everything is possible.
Legalities are juggled about all the time in the wrestling industry. Not everything is always done to a particularly moral standard, and this could be done. This could be the same, but in benefit for us. So I'm not going to complain about it.
Nope.
I mean, I think that's pretty much it. We're gonna on Lesnar and Orton. The fact that they're even feasible moves is absolutely insane.
We could get a SummerSlam rematch in an AEW ring. A repeat of the. But this time, Orton will bust Lesnar's head open and he'll bleed all over the canvas.
Yeah. And then Ric Flair's music hits.
Shut up. AEW. Right. When Dan gets to mentioning Ric Flair on a section of the agenda, you know it's time to move on. So that's what we'll do.
Yep.
We're going to recap the Raw now because obviously this is 2 weeks ago. We weren't here last week. We're going to try and do this as quickly as we can, and we don't want to spend too much time on this. We'll go through it quickly, and we'll see if we have any particular major thoughts on it, and if we don't, we'll just go match to match. Pre-show started with Bobby Roode and Chad Gable defeating Razor and Scott Dawson. Now, there were rumours that Wilder hadn't turned up. He'd missed the show. He'd not turned up on purpose because he's not happy with the situation. That's not true. He was never scheduled.
I think another rumor was also, hey, we don't want him to get the pay-per-view paycheck because of all of that, and
that's a good point as well, actually. But yeah,
pre-show matches didn't get as much of a pay-per-view paycheck.
No, they don't.
But I think it's still a bump, and
they'll still get some.
That's one of the reasons why Neville left.
Yeah, and the fact that they always receive
job into Enzo.
Yeah. But yeah, Roode and Gable beat them. It wasn't for the titles. The storyline was effectively AOP can stake a claim to needing a title shot. The Revival can do the same. Merge the two together. If you can beat them, both teams get a title shot. They didn't beat them, so we'll move on. The next match was Shinsuke Nakamura defeating Rusev for the United States Championship. Now, at the time, I thought this was a bloody stupid move. I thought the finish was dreadful, and I thought the title switch was dreadful. Just a few hours later, it all made sense.
And it got it got even more dreadful.
Rusev, he lost his title for the greater good.
Yeah,
Yep.
he sacrificed himself for the fact that we got what was
WrestleMania.
yeah. We'll get into the United States Championship in more detail later on. Basically, Rusev ended that match by accidentally knocking Lana off the apron, and Nakamura capitalised on the distraction for the win. We'll get into that more in just a second when we talk about the Women's Rumble match. Buddy Murphy retained the Cruiserweight Championship over Tozawa, Itami and Kalisto. Also on the pre-show, not much to say about this. It was a really good match.
Yep.
I was skeptical
Sucks.
apart from the fact that Kalisto exists. I was skeptical
Wait,
going in.
can I mention something? I just remembered that. Did anyone notice the piñata Kalisto brought to the ring at the Rumble?
No,
It
I
was
tune out
a
whenever
bloody
on my-
Fortnite piñata. It was
I tune out whenever Kalisto's on my screen, so no, I didn't see that.
okay.
Yeah, I
good.
don't know
Fair
that
enough.
game, so don't
Yeah.
know.
I didn't recognise it.
It's one of the, if not the most popular
It
game
would
right now.
surprise
Which
me if
only...
Kalisto played Fortnite, to be honest.
Smash Bros. That's the best game right now.
Yeah.
Anyway, yeah, I was skeptical going into the match because you look at that field, you look at Tozawa, you look at Itami, you look at Kalisto. Tozawa beat Rush to get into the match, and Kalisto beat Gulak to get into the match. I would swap them around. I'd have had Rush and Gulak in the match. I think that would have heading in. I would have said that would make it the match quality better. But it was a good match, so I'm not going to complain. There's not really much to add. We'll get more into the Cruiserweight Championship in a little bit when we talk about Elimination Chamber, because there's a bit of news there. But yeah, Murphy retained. It was Itami's last pay-per-view match. It was his penultimate match in WWE. And there's not really much to add. Murphy retained, dominant champion. We kicked off the pay-per-view with Asuka defeating Becky Lynch, retaining the Women's Championship in what I remember to be an actual really good match. There's not really much to add, other than what we'll get to in a bit.
I think that was dumb, but then they made up for it later on, so it's fine. People that are still clinging to that need to let it go.
Yeah. A slightly more controversial result was Shane McMahon and The Miz defeating The Bar to win the SmackDown Tag Team Championship.
Like I said in
Do we
our
really need to
first,
say anything?
like I said in our first stream, and where we had the Rumble predictions there, it's Shane McMahon. I'm not surprised. The match wasn't bad. It was fun. And I think I think the most important thing is how they move on from there. What
I
they
think
do
the most
now.
important thing is how more we see of The Miz's dad.
And don't forget to mention Shane did a shooting star press.
Yep.
Now, I mean, my theory was that Shane McMahon and The Miz were going to drop the titles pretty quickly to the returning Bludgeon Brothers. That didn't happen. We'll talk about Rowan later. But we'll move on to the next match, which was Rousey defending against Sasha Banks. She retained. There's not really much to say here, other than Sasha Banks picked up an injury in this match, and she still hasn't been cleared yet. Which, I mean, we didn't notice it. I didn't notice it at the time, but
I don't know.
It's
Ronda
boss time.
Ronda retained. It was a good match. There's not really much to add. It was what we expected.
I suppose we'll get back into Sasha later on. So
Yeah, we will. In terms of the injury. Keep it on the topic of women. We had the Women's Royal Rumble next, which was won by the aforementioned Becky Lynch. And this is where the matches we talked about a minute ago came into play, because Lana was still injured from being knocked off the apron by Rusev. She was making her entrance at number 28. She was hobbling. She fell to the floor. She was she was crying because she's Lana. And Finlay and his backstage pals, Jamie Noble.
Finley needs Hall of Fame.
Yeah, he punched his Hall of Fame ticket there. That's what he did.
And Becky should induct him.
Yeah, so Becky came out. Finlay said, "Go to the match," and Becky won. Happy days. Happy days indeed. We'll get to that in more detail in just a second. In a lot more detail, in fact.
Can I just say, two of the best people in that match were from NXT, and I just love Katie Catanzaro and Rhea Ripley. They impressed me so much. I saw some clips of Catanzaro on Twitter, but I didn't. For the time she has been in wrestling, I think it's under a year. I think it's like 11 months or something. And for that time, she's so good at it, and I just love her. I want to see more of her.
Yeah, she did the Kofi Kingston spot.
Yep.
And so did Naomi, annoyingly. I'm not a fan of that.
And a lot of other people.
And, well, yeah. The other surprise entrance, we'll get through these really quickly. Xia Li came in at 11. We haven't actually seen her on NXT TV yet. This was purely so they could say, oh my god, she's the first ever Chinese woman in WWE. That was the only reason she was in the match. Yep. She was fine. She was absolutely fine.
Yep.
No complaints, but that's why she was. Next in that was interesting was Kairi Sane. Could have predicted her, really. Potentially the biggest name in NXT women's division. Next was an interesting one because it was Maria Kanellis, who asked to leave recently. She's adamant. She's adamant in denying it. She did. It annoys me. She keeps saying I didn't request. She did. She did request a release. So sorry. But it is interesting that she was still in the match. And it's, what a coincidence that Ike and Maria have been on 205 Live the last 2 weeks since the fact that the reports came out. How insane is that?
Release. Since then, since nothing happened because she didn't ask for a release. Interesting.
Isn't it also interesting that since the Revival asked for their release, they're now getting a title match?
Yeah, it's so see-through. It's ridiculous. Yeah. They don't even try and cover it up.
Yep.
It's beyond belief.
Yep. But I think we'll get to that later. But I love. I'll talk about that the next time. I think when we talk about the chamber with Revival and stuff. Okay. So I'll get to that later.
Catanzaro was in at 19. We talked about her. Io Shirai was in at number 23. Sound. Absolutely fine. Rhea Ripley came in at 24. She was the NXT UK representative, because she's Australian. And there was a spot in the match. She's from that area. It was Zelina Vega. The Zelina Vega spot. She got knocked out the ring. She went under the ropes, so she wasn't eliminated. She went underneath the ring, like she did the Women's Evolution Battle Royal, because she's clever, channeling her inner Eddie Guerrero in terms of lie, cheat, and steal. So she was under the ring for a bit. She pops her head out. She's there for a couple of seconds. You look to her left. Someone else's head pops out, and it belongs to Hornswoggle, because of course, Hornswoggle lives under the ring.
I mean, the reports that came out that day said, hey, Hornswoggle is going to make an appearance at the Rumble was right, so...
At least he wasn't in the Rumble.
Yeah.
At least he was. I mean, it was fun. It was a fun few seconds, but, some things like that are needed, because...
Spots like that are, necessary in a Rumble, just fun...
Yeah.
Spots. Especially in a Rumble like that.
Yeah, because it's a long match.
I'm not saying I'm not saying it was bad. You say it was a long match. That was the longest Royal Rumble match, apart from the greatest Royal Rumble, which was 50 men. That was the longest Royal Rumble match that's ever happened. That was longer than the 40-man Royal Rumble in 2011.
I don't think it's especially about that, but the Royal Rumble in general is a long match, and I think you need some spots like that to break up the seriousness, bring the fun back into the fans and stuff.
She already had a good spot with Candice LeRae. It's fine.
Yeah, you didn't. You don't have Candice LeRae on the agenda surprise entrance thing. I just noticed.
What number was she?
I don't know. I think
she was in it, so happy. That's fine. She was in it. Hooray! Well done, her. We'll move on. There's not really much to add about the Women's Rumble.
Nope.
Becky, the right person won.
Yep.
We'll get into Becky and Ronda and Charlotte. We'll get into that in a minute. Next up, we've got a major return from injury.
Oh my God!
Rowan came back.
Yes.
Rowan came back in the WWE Championship match between Daniel Bryan and AJ Styles, and the referee got knocked down, and Rowan chokeslams AJ.
This is Rowan we all knew and loved. This is just plain old Rowan in his normal street clothes.
This is just Rowan. It's just Rowan.
But he has his great and awesome entrance theme back.
It fits his. It fits.
And he's tatted up now, so
Yeah, he has got some tats, yes.
And the O in his Titantron is a recycling symbol.
And
My favourite thing in the
indie
world.
rock band shirts, that's also a thing now.
to be honest,
Yeah, he is like. As much as I sat there and I said, "Oh, Rowan returned," I'm a fan of this. I hope it develops into something.
But
I mean, I think it would be a bit silly for Daniel Bryan to have a cult of eco warriors. I think maybe, it depends how they did it. Maybe that would get silly, but definitely having just one follower is good, because in the promo on SmackDown on Tuesday, he just started talking about Galileo. This is Rowan that we're talking about. And he just stood there and started reading stuff that Galileo talked about. I think this is really, really clever.
yeah. But why now? Why break up the Bludgeon Brothers? I don't get it, to be honest.
Harper hasn't been clear. There's a chance that we could see Harper back as the next follower. We don't know that.
Yeah.
But we don't know. The match
We'll see.
itself, Daniel Bryan versus AJ Styles, I thought was absolutely dreadful. I thought it was a bad wrestling match. And
I thought it was fine, but it was just very boring.
it was just...
It's a fine. It was a good match, okay match, but not for the stuff they can do. I think.
Yeah, especially when we've just had the TLC match, because the match at TLC was absolutely sensational. That puts your standards there, and they just dropped them. And I'm not saying this is their fault, because we all know
missing beef.
it's a bit-
It was the
It was
placement. They had it. They
Oh,
had
no,
it. Should have been the main event. So
Yeah, it's a shame, but
Yeah.
these things happen, and it's important because they were placed after the Rumble match. It was important to calm the crowd down because it's one of them. It's one of them things. It's the structure of a wrestling show. It's unfortunate that it has to happen. It's unfortunate that it has to be that match, but it has to be a match. And because of the Rowan return, it's not like we're sat here not talking about it because it was a forgettable match. The fact that it had the Rowan return and had the angle meant that.
I never thought I would say that Rowan made a match. Never thought I'd say that. But...
especially in AJ Styles versus Daniel Bryan.
Yep.
Rowan was the MVP in a match between Daniel Bryan and AJ Styles. Yeah, it was an interesting. We'll talk about the WWE Championship situation in a bit again when we talk about Elimination Chamber. The next match was Brock Lesnar versus Finn Balor for the Universal Championship. I thought this was better. I thought it could have been better, though. I've seen a lot of praise for it, and I think it was an excellent match, but it just went half as long as I thought it was going to.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I think the same, but I think it's perfect. I think it's great how they did it. It was
the content of the match itself was great. I just thought it would be a bit more drawn out.
Yeah.
I think that would have made it better, but it was a long show. It was a long last show, so
Yeah.
It was good. We'll see where Finn Balor goes in a bit as well. We'll be talking about that. The final match, the main event, was the Men's Royal Rumble match, which was won by, again, arguably, or even potentially unarguably, the right person won it, in Seth Rollins.
Yeah.
Who, he entered at number 10 last
There's
season.
a series of 2 videos on the channel where we discuss who should have won the Royal Rumbles, and your boy said both of those. So
his wish was obviously they're watching our videos. It's fairly obvious at this point. They might as well just ask for a working agreement with us, But the right people won the Rumbles.
Yep.
We'll talk about the surprise entrance and spots in the match, because like we did with the women. Jeff Jarrett was number 2.
We skipped that. We skipped to the next one.
JEFF Jarrett.
Thanks for that, Dan.
Ain't I great?
And the D-O-double-G.
This would have been fine if he never appeared on WWE TV again, but he did. We'll get into that in a minute.
And he will more often.
And
he will win the WWE Championship this year.
He faced Ric Flair.
Exactly.
You can move on to the next person.
Moving on, because I don't want to talk about Jeff Jarrett any longer than I have. Kurt Angle was number 4. He was another return entrant. This was originally meant to be Zack Ryder, but they just decided that Zack Ryder wouldn't get as big a reaction as Kurt Angle, so replaced him, which effectively sums up the last few years of Zack Ryder's WWE career.
Ooh, you know it.
Yeah, poor bloke. Gargano was number 6, which was nice. You know, it's always nice to see NXT guys in there. The next big spot was Titus O'Neil and Kurt Hawkins, which I thought it was really fun. It was really well done.
Yeah, Hawkins.
They were just gonna do the slip again. So
yeah, they didn't mock the slip as much as I thought they were going to, so it was fine. Hawkins came in the ring at a number. I can't remember what number. Titus came in soon after. And he did this thing where he was spinning to the ring, and he was like, "Oh, wait!" I didn't fall over, which was nice. Fun fact: they actually put pads on the metal part of the ring just in case he fell over.
That video.
And another fun fact: this was Kurt Hawkins' first ever linear Royal Rumble appearance. He was in the Greatest Royal Rumble, but he never was in the actual January Royal Rumble before, despite being with the company for quite some time with a break, of course.
Also Joe's first Royal Rumble match.
Yeah, and it was Hawkins' first Rumble. He eliminated Titus O'Neil. I thought it was really well executed, and a nice little thing. Next surprise entrants were Pete Dunne at number 18. He was the NXT UK representative. Expected that, absolutely fine. He's dead good in that. Number 21 was Aleister Black, and this has caused a bit of debate because I wouldn't have chosen Black into the Rumble. I'm not saying it's necessarily a bad thing, but I think people have seen him be eliminated from a Royal Rumble now.
Baron Corbin, nonetheless.
Baron Corbin, I forgot it was Corbin. Oh, dearie me. But people have seen Black get eliminated now, and I think the fact that Black has this aura, he was undefeated in NXT for so long, but he's come out and he's just been chucked out of the ring by Baron Corbin, and, you know,
to be honest,
I don't think it's going to necessarily affect him that much.
Yep, I don't think it will affect him at all.
It wasn't his debut.
It could have just been Ricochet. It could have just been someone else that he wouldn't have affected anyway.
Yeah, but I think it would have hurt someone like Ricochet way more to get eliminated like this than it would hurt Aleister Black. To be honest, I think.
Yeah, Black has that kind of rebuildability.
Yeah.
If that makes sense, where he can. People will forget that because
if he comes out and kicks Corbin in the head then after Mania and pins him in 2 seconds, no one will remember this.
Yep. And I think the reaction showed that the main roster knows who Aleister Black is when he came out. And I think he's ready. I think he's going up at, with the Superstar shakeup that just got officially announced. And yeah, I don't think it was that bad. I don't think it will hurt him at all. Yeah.
No one will remember it.
Yeah.
It didn't. At all, much like another elimination that I'm sure we'll get to.
So, the next kind of big thing was Bobby Lashley came out. I think he was number 26. He came into the ring, had a little bit of a scuffle with Seth Rollins, and just fell out. He slipped off the ropes, and he was gone in a few minutes. So I think Lashley had the shortest stay in the entire Rumble match. I'm not sure.
I think it was. They said it was in total. I think in total they said 47 seconds, but in the ring only 12 seconds or something like that. I think.
Yeah, it was either him or Jinder. I'm not sure who was in there longer because I remember Jinder got eliminated.
It was No Way Jose.
Who?
No Way Jose.
Oh yeah, he
Oh,
had.
yeah, I
Yeah,
forgot about
true.
him. I tried to erase him from my memory every
Yeah.
time.
To be
But,
honest,
yeah.
when he came out, I thought I didn't know he was still under employment, but okay.
I hate him. It does my head in. Like-
Yeah.
Right by Drew,
Like,
though.
it's like, this is a really good Rumble, and No Way Jose just came out, and I just went, oh dear. Like,
Right by Drew was the highlight of his career.
Yeah. I think it was worth it for the fact that it was a quick elimination. You need one of them in the Rumble, and he ate a headbutt from Drew. It was worth it for seeing that, I think. Next big spot was Lashley when he got eliminated. Dragged Seth out the ring, not over the top, and just slammed him through a table. Typical comeback spot. Rollins would go on to recover and win.
Yeah,
Because
I think that's the typical Iron Man spot where the dude goes
Nice.
out, has time to recover, gain back some stamina, and then come back in and win. I think that's. I think.
Did a triangle with both the winners, though. That was a
Yeah.
bit.
Yeah, it was a little bit.
It was kind of
There
obvious,
were
but
parallels.
not bad.
There were parallels.
Yeah.
Next big thing we'll talk about was Braun Strowman was the guy that was chosen to replace Cena. They announced Cena all the way up to the Rumble, knowing full well he wouldn't be in it, and they kept this up until the day of. It was only the day of the Rumble where they actually said, "Oh right, he won't be in it." Sorry, everyone who bought tickets to see John Cena. They replaced him with
Card
Braun Strowman.
always subject to change.
Yeah, exactly. It's such a stupid thing to do. But we can't complain. It's clever, but it's a knobhead thing to do. But they can do it, and they will continue to. Cena was filming a movie. I don't know if he still is. He probably still is. I don't know how long it
Yeah, I
takes.
think it just wrapped up like last week or beginning of this
Oh.
week, I think. I saw something online, but I'm not sure.
The interesting thing about Cena's angle is who was meant to be part of it and why they weren't. We'll discuss that now because I actually think I've forgotten to put this on the agenda. The storyline reason Cena wasn't going to be in the Rumble initially was because Lars Sullivan was just going to absolutely murderize him to the point where...
It is on the agenda, but lower down, but we can talk about
All right,
it.
okay. We'll talk about it now. So we don't
Yeah,
have
it
to-
makes sense to talk about it now.
So yeah, Lars was originally going to attack Cena, and that was going to put him out. Lars has not shown up to a WWE show yet. He's just not turned up to them. It's believed that this is because of mental health issues, panic attacks, that sort of thing. In which case, I'm sure we all wish him the very best. And take your time to recover. They changed this. They realised Lars wasn't turning up, and it's now the angle they're going with is Cena was injured by Drew McIntyre in the Fatal 4-Way Universal Championship No. 1 contender match that Balor won. That's what they're going with. So the rumour plan is originally it was going to be Lars versus Cena at WrestleMania because of Lars eliminating Cena from the Rumble. That's how it was going to come about. Depending on how Vince feels about Lars at this point, as much as mental health issues can't be helped, they're a serious thing. Much like injuries, they open up a question of, is this guy reliable? If we promote this,
yeah,
yeah,
he might just no-show Mania.
yeah, exactly. And then, there's no coming back from that. It's like, well, so the rumoured plan is they're just going to replace him with Drew, which I have absolutely no problem with. Drew versus Cena sounds like a good match. Sounds better than Lars versus Cena.
Yep.
And I think the alternative for Drew at Mania was, at this point in time, Strowman. So I'm glad that's not happening either. I think Drew versus Cena is a better match for all parties. It probably means we're going to get Corbin versus Strowman.
No, they'll just be either in the IC title match or the Battle Royal. Probably.
Yeah.
I don't think we'll go Strowman and Corbin one-on-one.
If they do,
Hope not. Anyway.
yeah, if they do, there's going to be some issues. But yeah, it's an interesting thing in terms of Cena. We'll have to see where they go because it really is play it by ear. If the plan is still Lars, it relies on him turning up. if the plan isn't Lars, then what does Lars do now? Where does Lars go from here?
Andre the Giant Memorial Battle Royal winner.
If he's at Mania, I don't think they'll put him in that match, and he'll just win the Battle Royal.
Yeah. Possible, likely. The next return was Dolph Ziggler.
Yay!
Every single time, he just finds a way to turn up. Mystery opponent, mystery man in the Rumble. It's always Dolph Ziggler. Whether he's leaving or not, whether he's just rejected a contract the other day, he's still going to turn up.
Or whether he says on an interview like hours before or days before he's on a hiatus from WWE. Just saying. I don't know if you saw that interview from Chris Van Vliet, I think it was. He said, "Hey, I'm on a hiatus from WWE now." I think it was on Saturday he said that, and Sunday he came back, and it's like, yeah.
Typical Ziggler. I wouldn't have had as much of a big problem with this, but he eliminated Drew McIntyre, and he was in the final 4.
Yeah, and I knew he wasn't going to win.
Yeah, when it comes down to a final 4 and there's a guy there that isn't going to win, it's just like, just get him out. There's no reason for him to be there. That spot, it could have been McIntyre.
Yeah, there was a moment in time I had that final 4, and I thought there was a chance that Andrade could have actually won it. Yeah, because you get lost in the moment. And if that was Drew, I definitely would have thought he'd had a shot. But it was
obvious Ziggler's not going to win. He rejected a contract a few days before, or a week or so before that, to become a producer for WWE. So, yeah, that's interesting. The fact that they offered him a contract of that nature implies he wants to stop wrestling, which makes it more strange that he was in the Rumble and he made it to the Final 4. It's all a bit confusing, but pretty much sums up Dolph Ziggler perfectly. There was one twist left, and it was Nia Jax. R-Truth comes out, he's rapping his What's Up music, and Nia Jax comes out and attacks him. Dan's been quiet for a while. What did you think of Nia Jax entering herself into the Rumble, Dan?
Oh my god. I know a lot of people actually like this because it was unpredictable or something, but I thought it was just god-awful. I mean, everyone expected that R-Truth won't be getting that number 30 spot and someone is going to attack him, some huge surprise. And well, indeed, it was a huge surprise. It was Nia Jax. And well, she wobbled her way to the ring and then she, got in a little scuffle with Randy Orton and eliminated Mustafa Ali and received an RKO and a 619 by Rey Mysterio.
And a super kick.
Like a garbage can, like bam, just to the floor. I mean, she's not really the safest worker.
But to be honest, then about that, how can you make a throw like that safe though? It's not really possible. It's always going to be a high risk, especially with that, because hey, you throw him a safe way, but you can't predict how he flies. It's like,
what a coincidence! Mustafa Ali is actually injured at the minute, so coincidence that. We don't know if it came because of Nia Jax. It might have happened before. It's funny. It's funny anyway. It's funny.
Well, didn't he get injured on SmackDown with that nasty black eye?
Oh yeah, that's another separate injury as well. He's also got a back.
But I think if he really was injured at the Rumble, maybe a minor thing that didn't keep him out of the ring because he wrestled on SmackDown. So
yeah, I mean we'll get into that. I think he's on the agenda at the end or somewhere, or when we talk about the Chamber. So we'll get into Ali's injury and the reports on that.
Yep.
Shortly. I don't think there's much else to say about the Rumble.
R-Truth has had real heat, apparently, according to Jerry Lawler, because of Nia Jax, because Nia Jax really went for it and slammed her into the LED board. And apparently, Truth got hot, but and then just days later, Truth and Nia released a video or something and explained that's all just wrong. And there was
I think with that situation, she threw him into the LED board. Yeah, so what? Why would they have real heat about that? If he gets hurt, a spot like that, it's always how he turns. It can always something can always go wrong with that, no matter who does it. And I think just to say, hey, she has real heat with him because he landed wrong or something. Why? No, I don't get it.
I think it was just something that came about out of nothing from someone who just wants to report on Nia Jax negatively.
Yeah.
Defend Nia often, but in this scenario, it said, oh, he had real heat for being hurt by her, but he wasn't injured. So by all accounts, they're saying, ow, it hurt when I slammed him against an LED board.
Of course it's going to hurt.
Yeah. Of course it is.
And they rubbished it after anyway. I think it was a complete... I don't know the origins of the report itself, but...
It was Jerry Lawler.
It was Jerry Lawler. It was Jerry... Of course it was Jerry Lawler. Yeah. It's not true. I'm not being funny. There was no heat between them. They've come out and said that. Jerry Lawler. Jesus Christ. Moving on. I don't think we need to talk about the Rumble much more.
Nope.
But we will talk about the Rumble... Or we will talk about... WrestleMania in relation to the Rumble. We mentioned Becky Lynch won the Rumble. She picked on the post-Rumble Raw. She picked Ronda Rousey. The official scheduled match at the minute is Ronda Rousey versus Becky Lynch. However, Dave Meltzer is reporting that unless Vince McMahon changes his mind before now and WrestleMania, which he has already done since a few weeks ago, it's going to be a three-way and Charlotte's going to get into the match. Now, a couple of weeks ago, Meltzer said it was going to be a one-on-one until Vince changed his mind. He's clearly changed his mind since then. So.
Changes his mind all the time, and to be honest, I think it's going to be a three-way. I think fans, or the most fans, are not going to like it, but I think it's the right move.
I think it's going to just make it a
to portray the Charlotte the way they want. I think it's the right move to do that. Do I agree with it? Not really, but...
And it's important to note as well that the fact that Ronda is due to leave temporarily after WrestleMania, having Becky and Charlotte in that match allows them to say that they have two women on the roster who main evented at WrestleMania. And that's something that it's just useful to come back to when you're hyping future matches. It's useful to have people with that accolade on the roster on a full-time basis. And I think it's going to make it more of a celebration when Becky wins, because she won't just have beaten Ronda Rousey. She'll also have Charlotte Flair.
You mean just like SummerSlam when she was added to a triple threat, and that was going to make it better for Becky to win, only for Charlotte to win it?
Well, there is also that.
Okay. So
there is also that.
In story, so obviously Becky won the Rumble and chose to face the Raw Women's Champion. So why, if they need to replace her, would it be a woman from SmackDown? How is she going to get in? It just makes sense.
It makes no sense. And what makes even less sense is the segments that they did following up from this. We'll talk about them now, because to be honest, absolutely baffled my brain.
Yeah, but I think they make sense. Are they particularly good? Not really, but they make sense.
They don't make sense. They don't make sense from the point of view.
Oh, Stephanie's going to screw Becky out of the main event, so either Ronda turns heel and retains, or Charlotte wins.
Oh, I mean, boy. We'll get into it now. So, Triple H, Stephanie McMahon suspended Ronda Rousey. Stephanie McMahon suspended Triple H.
Imagine that storyline.
We'll start again.
What's that?
Stephanie McMahon suspended Becky Lynch on Raw because she's not seeing a doctor about her knee. Where this doesn't make sense to me, why doesn't she just go and see a doctor then?
Yeah.
I think that comes into play in the next segment on SmackDown with Triple H.
Which was even worse. This segment started off well. It started with Charlotte Flair in the ring. It was a lethargically verbiated promo. It wasn't good from a...
Which is a standard Charlotte Flair promo.
Yeah, but dialectically, or, well, whatever words I'm trying to say, I thought the content of it was good. I think the fact that Charlotte is now a heel, Becky Lynch is now a babyface, that was made pretty clear. I like that because it shows that they're not complete idiots, just mostly idiots. And the angle was Charlotte Flair is mocking Becky Lynch because she's injured, and that's why she won't see a doctor. Triple H comes out and says, I don't think you are injured. I just think you're scared of Ronda Rousey. Why would you? They can't come up with new things. Why can Becky Lynch not just be a bit? Why has every babyface got to be a underdog? Oh, why can't we just have any badass babyfaces? We don't have any, and Becky Lynch could have been that, but instead Triple H has come out, completely taken that away, and just said, I think you're scared. And Becky's just standing there. Becky's not said, oh, okay then, I'll prove I'm not scared. I'll just go and have my leg checked then. She's not doing it. And it's going to pay off because it's going to feel nice when she wins the match at WrestleMania. Which I'm banking on happening, and if that does not happen, I will explode.
I think what they
with
wanted...
the authority stuff, there's definitely more of a chance she doesn't win.
Yeah. Well, because... I think the thing they wanted to achieve with that segment is okay, but they did it the wrong way, I think.
They want to build sympathy for Becky Lynch. They want people to get behind Becky Lynch. They already are. Everyone already is.
I think, yeah, true.
What I believe is what they will be going to do is they will extend the wait for Becky Lynch becoming the women's champion for behind and after WrestleMania. They will extend it for longer than WrestleMania, because the last time there was a triple threat for the women's title at WrestleMania, it was Bayley, it was Becky, Charlotte, and Sasha Banks. And who was ringside? It was Ric Flair, and he helped Charlotte Flair to retain that title, to win that new version of the title.
Why?
And Ric Flair is going to be at ringside with Charlotte at WrestleMania, and Charlotte Flair will effectively turn heel and win the championship. So Becky Lynch has to chase for longer.
Mute him, and now we move on.
I was about to kick him from the call, actually, but
that's what's going to happen.
No, but I something else related to the Raw Women's Championship. I just opened Twitter and almost puked.
Oh God!
Officially announced for the Elimination Chamber Raw Women's Championship match: Ronda Rousey versus Ruby Riott.
Oh,
that sounds alright.
I like that. They
feel a match you need.
I think that's absolutely fine. I mean, the result is obvious. We know Ronda's going to win, but we knew that anyway. Whoever she was against, I think that's absolutely fine. Moving back into, we'll talk about that when we get to the chamber, maybe in more depth. The final thing on the Becky, Ronda, Charlotte, McMahon's thing. The Observer reported that they have talked about doing Becky Lynch versus Stephanie McMahon at SummerSlam.
Which leads me to believe that she's not going to win the belt. They're not going to give Stephanie a title match. Although Shane McMahon is holding a title count.
Shane McMahon is a champion.
Yeah, it's Charlotte Flair winning. She's turning here at WrestleMania with the help of Ric Flair. I tell you, that's what's going to happen.
Can we please?
We move on because Ric Flair has come.
Yep.
Ric Flair has come up. We'll move on. I've literally written here that potentially Ruby Riott will be Ronda Rousey's next opponent. Yep. That's just been confirmed. So next thing is Seth versus Brock Lesnar. There's not really much to say about this. There's no controversy. There's no what are the plans going to be. In fact, there is actually.
The injury.
There's the injury, which I appear to.
Apparently nothing to do. No, not troubling to me at all.
Yeah, I think it's just a thing of wear and tear. Things like that.
I think he's just taking a few weeks off.
Yep, I think that's it.
Potentially because of the Dean Ambrose situation we mentioned before.
Yeah.
Seth wrestled non-stop for yonks, and they don't want an Ambrose situation where he gets burned out. So
Yeah.
he had a
Although
report
he
how
burns it down.
I was thinking,
Oh, God. I had to do it. I'm sorry.
go to if you didn't. It's fine.
Excellent content, everyone.
So
Yeah, so the back injury was reported by Meltzer, and is just going to be resting up a few weeks, sort of thing. The WrestleMania match isn't in question. It's not a case of will he be fit for WrestleMania. It's a case of he'll be fit for WrestleMania. He's just having a rest, which is absolutely fine. Understandable, because if Seth Rollins were to get injured, absolute nightmare. If Seth Rollins were to get injured between now and WrestleMania, absolute nightmare.
Just don't have him wrestle. Just don't.
I wouldn't have him wrestle at all.
Yeah. I don't.
He doesn't need to. There's no reason for him to. Which
Have been that way with anyone because Brock is champion.
Yeah.
And
that's
I think,
that's what I'm saying.
and that's not particularly that it is WWE's fault, of course, because they accept like the way it is, but I think it's not a bad man's getting injured again and having that match scrapped and stuff like that. And I'm not mad at minimize the time he is on TV and they have to worry about that, and it's a good thing.
Yeah. I mean, where it's negative is the fact that Raw dangerously lacks star power at the minute because Seth was the biggest babyface on there, and the fact that he's off leaves that angle in main events.
Well, I don't think Seth is going to be off TV completely. I just don't think he's going to do any physical thing.
Yeah. That's a good point.
I think he's going to be there just to promos, backstage stuff, but I don't think he's going to be off TV. I just think he won't be wrestling.
I mean, it's the same with same thing with Becky Lynch, because it's a storyline leg injury, but they're doing the same thing where they're not going to have her wrestle needless matches. It's an excuse for her to not have to wrestle. The suspension is an excuse for her to not have to wrestle.
To be honest, which I think is a better thing than have her wrestle pointless matches.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's the positives definitely outweigh the negatives in both situations.
Yep.
Because if Becky was to get injured again, absolute couldn't recover. And if Seth were to get injured again, that's a nightmare. And it's not something particularly we want to think about.
I'd rather not.
There's no reason for that. Yeah, good. It's good. They're not there.
Yeah,
they're not.
moving on.
Good stuff. Moving on.
Yeah.
Speaking of good, Daniel Bryan's new WWE Championship. I love it. Amazing.
It's beautiful.
It's
And Rowan.
eco-friendly.
I love it. I love the whole thing. Rowan coming out with his recycling badge or his Titantron. It's the whole package. Like, I'm going to say something now that, might surprise people. It might not. I've never really actually cared about Daniel Bryan. Even in the WrestleMania 30 stage, I wasn't actually that into it. And since his return in March last year, I mean, I think I speak on behalf of a lot of people that was pretty underwhelming, and he was never really a big deal. But since this heel turn, since he won the championship, he's right up there with the guys I most care about now in terms of and I think, I attribute it to Rowan. If he didn't have Rowan with him, obviously that wouldn't be the case.
Yeah.
But I love the whole package. I love Daniel Bryan, love Rowan together.
He's up there with Otis and Liam's favourites.
Up there.
Kendrick, yeah.
They haven't got a clue what they're doing, first of all.
And
it also
New era. People want to see this.
A significant lack of depth in the roster, which is unbelievable because they have a huge roster, but there's somehow still a lack of depth there. I think the lack of depth, really, rather than just saying there's a lack of depth in the roster, there's a lack of depth in the roster of big, names that we want to see on our TV.
Yeah, which is also their fault because they can't book greatest storylines and drop everything before it's great.
I mean, I've just thought in my brain, Elias versus Tyler Breeze. I mean, they could turn that into a really creative angle, and Elias versus Tyler Breeze is a match that people want to see more than Elias versus Jeff Jarrett. But Elias won. Elias won on Raw. So, hopefully we can move on. Hopefully we never see Jeff Jarrett on TV again.
He had to get their heat back. The 50.
Elias won, but there was a post-match angle. Don't forget about that.
They had to get their heat back, of course.
Yes.
This is why I think it's going to be Road Dogg versus Elias on Raw. Because it felt like there's more to come from this. Which is absolutely baffling. And moving from absolutely baffling onto absolutely baffling, R-Truth won the United States Championship 2 days after Shinsuke Nakamura beat Rusev for it. So Truth beat Shinsuke in a few seconds with a roll-up. And a few people said this was a botch. It wasn't. But Rusev then comes out and...
say that it wasn't a botch.
Yeah, basically, I saw the notes before the show happened, and
I have the picture of Road Dogg on screen right now. I'll make it a bit bigger, so you can all enjoy that. That's what we're talking about.
That can just sit there for a few minutes. So the layout of the post-SmackDown, the post-Rumble SmackDown was a bit of a mess and seemingly changed as the show went on, because I saw the notes before the show, and the Truth versus Nakamura match was originally actually meant to be a lengthy match, which obviously it wasn't. And there's a couple of possible explanations to this. One of them could be the chaos that we referred to earlier backstage in terms of trying to get contract things done, and Vince was just very sort of right and centre and changing things up, because there was also meant to be a Rey Mysterio versus Samoa Joe match on that show that also didn't happen.
I mean, they announced it.
They announced it, and it was meant to happen, but they didn't do it. And the interesting thing about Rusev and Nakamura both being beaten by Truth is that despite Rusev and Nakamura feuding for the last 3 months, since longer than 3 months, because the match at Crown Jewel, for months, they've been feuding for months, and all of a sudden, they just both beat up R-Truth, and suddenly they're a tag team. Which, I don't think they're a bad tag team. I think Rusev and Nakamura together as a tag team is quite a good idea. But I don't...
how they done it.
Exactly.
If you take a look at Rusev's career path from last year to now, he was standalone heel, then he added Aiden English, and they became a tag team of heels. Then they both turned babyface. Then Aiden English turned heel on Rusev, so Rusev was a singles babyface, and then they turned him heel again, and then he got another heel tag team partner.
It's almost like Rusev is becoming the new Big Show.
Or the new Dolph Ziggler.
I wouldn't say he's the new Big Show, because he did turn just twice. He did have the lengthy babyface run.
Yeah.
Yes, but it's like he got over, and they just didn't want to push Aiden English, and so they just made everything crap.
It's because they hate Rusev.
And they hate Aiden English even more.
They do well in an outside company, so they want to keep him around.
Yeah. Ric Flair.
Yes. Moving on. Ember Moon is injured. She's going to be out for a couple of months with an elbow injury. Shame.
So the big discussion coming from this is now, if with her out and Charlotte in the triple threat, who's going to face Asuka for the SmackDown Women's title?
I think either multi-woman match with all the SmackDown women, or Mandy Rose in a singles. If it's going to be a singles, it'll be Mandy. But if it's not, then just a bunch of them.
Nikki Cross.
Nikki Cross is on Raw.
She's not confirmed for Raw. She's still in limbo.
They've still not fully decided that yet.
Then put her on SmackDown and have her go against Asuka and have a great match like they did on that one takeover, that last woman standing match. Have that again at Mania, and I'm totally happy with that.
Yeah. Well, did any of them NXT peeps show up on SmackDown this week?
Heavy Machinery had a dark match before SmackDown. I
Wow.
think that's the closest thing we've got.
Yeah.
No, there were no NXT sightings on SmackDown.
They had EC3 and Nikki Cross on Raw, and Otis on Raw.
Yeah. Yep. Lacey wasn't on either, and Lars obviously wasn't on either.
Yep.
Talking of Lars, we've already talked about this, to be honest, but apparently WWE wanted him to become an instant star in the Rumble match.
I wonder why.
He was going to win. He was going to win it, I reckon. Because how else do you make an instant star?
Exactly, that's a good point. But then you've got the thing of the plan was for him to be against Cena. So how do you kind of make that come about? It's one of them things that it would have been really interesting to know. Like, as much as maybe we're not a massive fan of Lars in that.
Maybe he was in it and eliminated Braun and came second.
I don't think that's an instant star. I think the only way to become an instant star, like you said, is winning.
I don't know how he could have been in the Rowan spot, but is Rowan an instant star? I mean, to us, he is.
I mean, there have been guys that eliminated the Undertaker and became a star from that.
Like Maven.
Like Maven, the superstar Maven, who still wrestles in main events all across the world.
And Roman Reigns.
Roman Reigns. But yeah, Lars is an interesting one.
Yep.
I hope he shows up because I'm interested to see how that's changed.
Yeah, it would just be sad to see him go out like that.
Like that.
I mean, yes, it might be mental health, but it's still a serious thing, and I would be disappointed. But of course, if it's a health thing, it's even more sad. But yeah,
like if he came back, like obviously I'm not the biggest Lars Sullivan super fan, so if he came back and failed on his own merits, that's one thing. But I wanted to see him at least get the chance to sink or swim, instead of just him just sitting out and doing nothing.
Yeah, I guess he calls his fans the lurkers, so you are not the great lurker, I guess.
I'm not a great lurker.
Yeah. Yeah. So.
Talking of lurkers, someone who's always lurking around Kurt Angle is Baron Corbin.
Ugh.
And this particularly annoyed me. The angle that they teased with Angle on Raw was that Angle was going to address his WWE future. Now, I joked in my Wrestle Talk Live coverage of Raw that the Angle was going... I've got to feel like a little fucking... But it's related, so it's worth it. I joked that in the preview, I said, I bet this is just going to be a way for them to do Braun Strowman and Kurt Angle versus Baron Corbin and Drew McIntyre. It was.
Sometimes you don't want to be right, I guess.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, that's WWE for you.
At least now that match.
That whole thing of teasing Angle's big announcement and then having Baron Corbin involved is peak WWE.
And showing that backstage picture of just jobbers. Visibly said that Angle might retire, and no big star cared for him.
No Way Jose backstage. It was like, Yeah.
Hey, man.
It's
we're ending on a high note, I see.
Drew McIntyre's an interesting one because he was one of the favourites heading into the Rumble, but now he's just in a tag team with Baron Corbin. It seems they don't know what they're doing, and I think part of this is because of Lars, because they genuinely don't know what they're doing, because they don't know if Lars is going to turn up to face Cena, so they can't really put Drew into a major program in case they need him for the Cena match.
Yeah.
But he's going to suffer because of that, because he's not going to have a major program. So will he be hot enough for the Cena match? It's one of them where it's a very difficult position for the company. So, the whole Lars Sullivan thing, it's unfortunate for Lars because obviously it's unfortunate for Lars. It's unfortunate for us because we don't get to see him. It's unfortunate for the company because their plans have to now change. And Drew McIntyre is seemingly a byproduct. He's suffering because of that, which is a shame for him because he could have won the Rumble. He could have been the one to beat Brock Lesnar. It became increasingly less likely as the Rumble approached. I think in the months that led up, like a few months before the Rumble, maybe 2 or 3 months before the Rumble, it was like Drew McIntyre could genuinely win the Rumble. But as it kind of got closer, it was kind of like he's just not going to. And now he's teaming with Baron Corbin again. We're going round in circles.
Yep.
The Magnificent Seven of Raw again, just feuding with the same people over and over. See, because Ziggler wasn't around, so Elias had to attack Jeff Jarrett, who is known as Dolph Ziggler, to keep the circle going.
Talking of the Magnificent Seven, the final thing we're going to touch on here is 2 more of the Magnificent Seven. Finn Balor and Bobby Lashley. Yes. Seemingly having a program. There's not really much to talk about here. It seems they're going to build to a title match at the Chamber, possibly Fastlane.
Finn will win it whenever it happens.
Yeah.
Yep.
I don't think there's really actually much to add to that. It's
The
just
best this whole year to blow off will be a 7-man ladder match. Strowman, Corbin, McIntyre, Ziggler, Elias, Balor, Lashley. Sums the whole year up in one match.
Yep.
Yep.
That's true.
That fits it quite perfectly, yes.
And
Leo Rush is great, we should say that. Leo Rush is great.
Leo Rush is great.
Yes.
Yep.
So is Otis. And so is Guggenhagen.
No. Let's not start again. One thing I forgot to add to the agenda, actually. I've just realised. It's just popped up on Twitter before we finish. The official partnership between AEW and AAA.
Yeah, to be honest, I don't know much about AAA. I know they had some relation with Lucha Underground, I think.
They own Lucha Underground.
Or they own Lucha Underground, right? But that's all I know about them. To be honest, I never watched any of their stuff. So I can't say much about that, if it's a good partnership, if it's going to benefit one or another. So
I'd say it's good for them, for AAA.
And it also is kind of interesting because the counterpart or the rival promotion of AAA is